Burrito, steak, cheese, rice, queso, cheese, sour cream. Sorry, I was filling out a burrito order. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody.
Wait,
What? Leave the hat up there. It's cool.
it's dirty.
That's a vintage hat. Put that hat up there. Okay, whatever. Did we have the worst luck with trying to get everything right? Because we tried to do this last night and then
That didn't work.
didn't have a battery. Then took us about an hour to finally get it working today. So, but we're finally it's working. So now we're ready to get started. So we're gonna take this back to about a week ago, week and a half, whatever. Jake Paul versus Ben Askren fight. Triller.
Whoa. We're starting.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
we've been rolling already.
Yeah, we've been rolling, but that doesn't mean we started.
Yeah, it is. Well,
Okay.
we're gonna take it back to about a week ago to the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight. I thought the fight was obviously it lasted about
A minute and 40 seconds.
yeah.
Something like that.
But so I still think, in my opinion, my opinion on Jake Paul.
Yeah.
I don't like him at all. I think he's at the point right now where he thinks that being a boxer is like a personality trait.
I would disagree. I mean,
It's just that I was listening, and one thing that I don't think is right is that having that is a dangerous sport. I mean, very dangerous, and he's getting in there with people with former NBA players and a bag of milk UFC fighter and another YouTuber. People besides Ben Askren, the other two people shouldn't have been in there with him at all.
Ben Askren shouldn't have been in there with him.
Yeah.
That man-
Ben Askren said that he did the fight for the money. So I mean, he walked out with more money than Jake Paul did. Yeah, I think Ben Askren walked out with $1 million, and Jake Paul's purse was $690,000.
Jake was the favorite.
I know, but that's just what it says.
So
But
does Ben Askren just have better agents or something?
I guess I'm not really sure, but I thought I was for sure hoping that Ben was going to win, and thank God I didn't close out my bet because then I would have lost $100 that night. But what I did enjoy about the fight, well, first off, I go back and read reviews from the whole event and
What?
the Triller event, just the whole thing, and everyone's saying how it was a complete travesty because I understand it was more of a celebrity type commentators, but they had no idea what they were talking about. When I was watching the previous fights before the Jake Paul fight, they had no idea what they were talking about.
Well, yeah. What you expect from Pete Davidson?
But that actually is what I enjoyed about it because
I did enjoy it too when he was going kiss him.
Yeah.
I want to see him make out.
I couldn't tell who he was going for because he was trash talking everybody.
I think he just doesn't care.
Because he went into Ben's locker room and he was and he goes, "Oh yeah, well he's just a celebrity." And then Ben goes, "I don't even think celebrities like him." So and then he went into Jake Paul's locker room and was saying how what was it he was saying? He was like he's too old or whatever, which he's 36?
No, I want to say he's younger.
Ben Askren.
He's either 32 or he's
look.
36. It's not anywhere in between. It's either 32 or 36.
Let's check. He is 36 years old. But all the reviews on the event were just everybody was just talking so bad about it because everyone said they were using filters on the cameras instead of just doing a normal camera lens. They said that they were doing filters, so it made the when you're watching it, it would look different.
How would it look?
Like they're like it would be like a color screen instead of it
So-
just being like a normal like.
Well, they don't put new filters on it. It's gonna look washed out and bad.
Yeah.
So they're actually doing everybody a favor by putting filters on it. I mean,
And then
that's just coming from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, and they
Yeah.
don't know that the normal color that comes out of the camera is really boring, and you have to go in and fix that yourself.
the one thing I will say about Jake Paul is that he is taking this very seriously,
Oh,
which is like I respect that. I really do. But like I think he's all right. He's got 3 wins now, all 3 of them by knockout. He hasn't been in the ring for more than like 6 rounds.
That is
I
crazy.
mean, combined all of his fights, he's only been in the ring. He's only been in like 5, 6 rounds of boxing. But then again, these are all
Nate Robinson,
that was second round.
That was second
round.
And then Deji.
Yeah, and then the other guy
And
was
5 rounds.
So yeah, he hasn't been with a cardioed athlete.
He hasn't been with really any athlete.
And so I have it written down that so now after the Ben Askren fight, a bunch of other like he wants to fight not just boxers, he wants to fight UFC fighters. He's calling Tyron Woodley called him out.
Tyron Woodley.
Yeah. And he hasn't been in the game for a long time just because he's been on a
He fought.
yeah.
He fought like last month.
Against who?
I can't remember his name. Type in the Google machine. I just remember seeing highlights of it and it being a really close fight, and I think Tyron ended up winning.
But and then Jake Paul went to call out one of the greatest boxers of all time, Canelo Alvarez.
Canelo Alvarez.
Yes. Yes, he called out Canelo because so there's a couple like fights that are definitely going to be set up for him. I think the most ideal fight for him right now is going to be against Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's little brother. He's really new, up and coming. He's 5 fights, 5 knockouts. So hopefully I get
$100 on that one.
I mean, he's the brother of one of the greatest heavyweights of all time.
Brother doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I know, but that also means that he's probably very well trained. And
Yeah,
also,
I'm sure Patrick Mahomes' little brother is a great quarterback.
no.
Exactly. You don't know, that's the thing. And I haven't seen this guy fight. I haven't seen what he can do. I didn't know he existed until like 2 months ago.
I didn't either. Or just like I didn't know Tyson Fury had a little brother until. But definitely we need to see Jake Paul fight somebody who has a lot of experience and someone who's an actual boxer and
I'm not even saying a lot of experience.
or just a little bit of
I
experience.
just want him to fight somebody that can actually fight with him.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
somebody who's going to hold their hands up like it's Leonardo DiCaprio. And
He was holding his
Gangsta
hands up
New
like a
York.
1940 boxer,
He was like, ah.
and he got memed on that hard. Like that was that. I mean, Stephen A. Smith was like he was holding his hands up like a 1940s boxer, and so, but I don't. And so I was watching Ariel Helwani interview him after the fight, and he was asking all these hard hitting questions like, did you regret taking the fight, or did you even train that hard for the fight? I mean, obviously he trained, but how hard did he train though? Was he even because obviously he wasn't prepared for Jake Paul's like style of fighting because Jake Paul he hits hard, right? But I just need that's all I want right now. I just want to see him fight somebody who will give him more than 2 rounds because we haven't seen him pass the second round in his. He's been fighting for like 3 years and he hasn't been past the second round in the past 3 years.
You say fighting for 3 years, like he's had more than 3 fights though.
He's had how many? He's
3
what?
fights.
Yeah.
Nate
Okay. Well,
Robinson,
then maybe it's more than 3, but
professional.
Yeah, 3 professional fights, and then also new in fighting. The Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight card or the fight has been officially like set this June 5th.
I thought it was
June 6th. And also, and I was reading something today, and I was saying how Mayweather taking that fight is just an absolute like disgrace to the sport because he's one of he's the best to ever step into that ring, and they're saying how it was just hold on, maybe I can find it and I can play it for you, but he was just talking about how it was a disgrace to the sport and how he shouldn't do it and how he's only doing it for the money. When literally Floyd has more money than any athlete on the planet.
He might have spent it all.
I've heard that.
Athletes have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And you'd think Floyd would be okay just with him having stakes and so many other things, but I think
Floyd has fun at strip clubs.
He
owns a lot of them.
All of his assets. They might just be like tied up in investments and everything, so they're not immediately accessible, and he just needs a quick buck.
Yeah.
Because that's probably why he took the McGregor fight. Let's be honest.
Well, also, that was one of the most hyped up fights in all of combat sports.
Well, true.
I mean, I'd never been more excited for a fight when I heard about that. And I thought that fight was great.
Oh, yeah.
Even though
10 rounds?
Yeah.
The best boxer.
Yeah, that's very, very impressive.
In your first professional boxing
And
match?
Mike Tyson was even saying that. He was like, he went 10 rounds with the greatest in the past 20 years. So, I mean, and hopefully I get but anyways, what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought. Talking about Floyd. I feel like this fight can go one or two ways. Because obviously Logan is a lot bigger. So I don't even know.
You think Logan may bully him?
Yeah. I mean, I like Logan Paul. I'm a big Logan Paul fan, but I like Floyd Mayweather.
So
I have a lot of respect for Floyd.
Love Logan so much, but hate Jake.
I like Logan Paul because he doesn't run his mouth off like Jake Paul does. And when Jake Paul does run his mouth off, it's people that he definitely should not tangle with. Like McGregor or Canelo or any of those guys. Dylan Dennis, that's okay. You can talk about him because that's an ideal fight too. I like to see that. Dylan, I could honestly see Jake Paul.
I don't even know who that man is.
You don't know who that is?
No.
He trained with McGregor.
Oh, was he the guy that
he was one of the guys? Yeah.
Who could be beat up?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. With the douchey bleach blonde hair.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I know exactly.
Yeah, and there was Brendan Schaub has like a podcast that he does, and he talks to fighters, and he had Dylan Dennis on, and Brendan Schaub's podcast, all they do is they stand on a sidewalk, like on a street corner, and just talk, which is pretty creative. But one time, Jake Paul and his little friends drove by and just started throwing like water balloons at him, which that's kind of it's funny, but then that's also kind of like why?
Yeah.
And so then there's a ton of fights for Jake Paul that will sell, and that's his and one thing that I have a lot of respect for him right now is that he is putting up a lot of numbers. I mean, now according to Dana White, all the pay-per-view buys from Triller were bullshit. Never happened. And it says that so 1.5 if that 1.5 million dollars is true, then that puts them in the top 10 for highest selling pay-per-view boxing events of all time.
How much was it?
$1.5 million, and it generated $75 million.
1.5 million
pay-per-view buys. Yeah, okay. And that puts them in the.
And they were what, 60? How much was it for pay-per-view?
Like $60. So all right, so I'm looking at most bought pay-per-view boxing. So right now, obviously in terms of like boxer, Floyd has I think in like the top 5, Floyd's got 3 of those as
what
like highest bought, like because obviously McGregor, Canelo, and Pacquiao. Pacquiao's I think was the second, and McGregor and Mayweather's the first one.
How old is Manny Pacquiao now?
He's fighting. Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
like that. He's a freak.
The
Like
20-year-old kid?
yeah, who's got the quickest hands I've ever seen. Like yeah, they're they're supposed to fight, but it's supposed to be this summer. But I can't believe Pacquiao and Pacquiao and fighting, like especially when you got a fighter like Pacquiao, boxing is so like there can be so much hype brought in. Like I remember like after the Conor fight, there were talks of Pacquiao and Floyd fighting again, and I think that would generate over 2 million buys. I think. But yeah, that's one thing that I respect about Jake is that he brings in a lot of numbers. But according to Dana White, he thinks that that's not true. I don't know how. But yeah, he just doesn't think that's true. And then the following week was one of the greatest. Last weekend was one of the best UFC cards I've ever watched.
I caught the last 2 fights.
UFC
I was at work. Oh my god!
So well, you didn't get to see.
I didn't see Chris Weidman break his leg.
That was gnarly. And Uriah Hall. Then it's the guys I'm looking at the card right now. He ate that kick. Like it's like his body was made of complete steel.
Oh, yeah.
And when he kicked it, you can see his Weidman's leg just like dangle, and then his broken leg hits the floor.
Yeah, I watched
and he just
I watched it back in slow motion, and it was showing. And like once he kicked him, it looked okay.
Yeah.
But then as he pulled his foot back, it kind of bent like a macaroni noodle.
Mm-hmm. It was bad.
And then he stepped on it.
I've never seen. That's only. I don't think that's only happened like in Silva. That's like there's only 2 times that's ever happened.
I've only seen it with Silva before that.
And his
sure
his was a lot worse. Yeah. I think his was a lot worse.
Silva's?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
But that whole entire card was just so starting off with the Weidman fight, that was just, and I didn't get to see a lot of the Valentina and Jessica fight. I didn't get to see. Yeah, she did in second round knockout. I didn't get to watch a lot of that fights, but then the co-main event, Thug Rose and Zhang, that fight was unbelievable. I just remember we were sitting on the couch and I was listening to my interview from when I was on the radio, and then because the TV was turned down, so there was no audio, and then all of a sudden I see Rose just connect that leg kick to the head, and I just remember I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh my god, and
then you had all the Twitter posts that the UFC shows from the famous people. They're all screaming, Thug Rose,
yeah,
let's get it. It was that was crazy.
Yeah, and her post-fight interview almost made me cry. It was really emotional. Because she has been through a lot. As terms like fighting, and because she's fought. I haven't really kept up with her a lot, but I know she's fought some pretty high level chicks.
I mean, she was what's her weight class?
Strawweight.
Strawweight.
Yeah.
She was the strawweight champion at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And
then she lost. I think it might have been Carolina. I don't know. I don't really keep up with a lot of the girls. But then the main event, Usman versus Masvidal. 2. That was, and I think now, especially after how this fight ended, I think the UFC now needs to show this is Kamaru Usman, this is what he does. That punch that he hit, that right hand. Why? We've been going for 20 minutes? Damn, we still need to cover it. I mean, we've covered all that, all this, and then I have future fights that I want to talk about as well.
All right, let's go.
All right. But the way Usman connected with that right hand, I mean, that was just...
Oh, it was dirty. That was disgusting.
That looked like one of the hardest punches I'd ever seen thrown at somebody. And in Usman's post-fight press conference, everybody was like, "Those you think those punches were necessary?" And he was like,
Are you talking about the blows after?
yeah, like after he was already like unconscious. And he was like, yeah, absolutely they were. Because Jorge was asked the exact same question after he gave Ben Askren the knee. And he was sitting there eating a slice of pizza, and he was like, yeah, of course. Got to make sure he's done. When literally he was completely stiff. But
But at the same time, you got adrenaline pumping through you and all of that stuff.
yeah, you just gotta. That's just the main instinct to do after you knock somebody out is to go in for those hammer fists just to make sure. But what do you think's next for Usman? What do you think is next for him as far as like what's the most ideal fight for him? I think it's got to be Covington. That's what I think. I think that's a fight to make. But
there's nobody else in the welterweight division for him to fight.
He's basically been through just about everybody.
He's beat out the whole division.
So I right now Covington is the most ideal fight for him, and I think it'll happen. Dana White will definitely make that fight. That's one thing Dana White's really good at is making fights that like the people want to see. Except the fights that I want to see, I probably will never be seen just because, like, right now I have like a list. I have like a top 3. Like, we'll do this. I'll tell you my top 3 dream fights, and you tell me your top 3 dream fights. So so McGregor is pretty much on all of them, but just I would definitely want to see Khabib and Conor too. But Khabib has said he's done, so he's not going to fight anymore. So, but just
Coach K now.
But just imagine, the hype that would be behind that fight, because there was a lot of hype.
Do you remember how crazy the promotion material was?
Yes.
Just before the fight,
Conor threw a dolly,
with the dolly and all that,
and then he still got in there and got to be able to fight. And then after going to court and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm surprised his license in New York wasn't revoked, and they had to No. I thought they would have to move it.
Dana White wouldn't have let that happen. Conor loves New York way too much. That's where he loves to fight the most, is in New York or Vegas. But just the hype behind that fight was just, because it's like Ireland versus Russia. And there were talks of where the fight was going to take place when they were first scheduling it. They were saying, Khabib saying it's either in Moscow or I'm not doing it. And then Conor was like, well, then I want it to be in Ireland. And then it was just, and that card was really good as well, that fight card. Because that was Ferguson and Anthony Pettis, one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen. Their whole entire body was completely covered in blood. And then the big Russian guy, Volkov, versus Derek Lewis. That was when the infamous "My Balls Is Hot" interview came out.
That was
that was that card.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so so that's another one. And then number 2, McGregor Diaz 3. Yeah. Oh that's honestly honestly like my most like wanted fight is McGregor Diaz 3, because it only makes sense. It's a tiebreaker. It's 1-1.
How did Diaz survive that first fight though?
He is probably the toughest dude in that sport. I mean, he's and first off, he's everyone's favorite, both Nate and Nick. When the 261, when they were like showing all the different fighters that were there, they did Jake Paul and Antonio Brown, and everybody started like booing them. And then when it went over to Nick Diaz, the crowd just went crazy. So so McGregor Diaz 3 is
those Diaz brothers.
Yeah, so they're from the rough streets of California.
Compton, right?
Yeah, no, they're Stockton. Yeah, and so I mean, and those fights, just the hype behind those fights. I mean, the second one obviously had more hype, with him throwing the water bottles and Nate talking about how he's going to do the exact same thing and beat him again. But that second fight is probably like one of the best fights I've ever watched. Went all 5 rounds. Both of them could hardly stand after the fight, drenched in blood, cuts everywhere. That's literally what the sport is, and that's why it was my favorite fight to watch.
But at the same time, it's kind of hard to watch those fights because you know that they're not going to be the same after a war like that.
Yeah.
They're going to just they're going to leave everything out there. And when the fight's over, they're not going to be able to bring some of it back. They'll have most of it, but they're not going to be that. They're not the same fighter that they were before that second fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Conor knew that going in the second fight, he had to be so much more conditioned.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like in that fight, Nate said, "I'm either winning or I'm going to die." And then in the post fight interview, they were like, "We're going for 3 after the second fight." But Conor said he would only do the fight at 155 because he did it at 170 both times because Nate said it's either at 170 or I'm not doing the fight. So Conor was like, "Okay, all right, we'll do it." And then now he was telling Joe Rogan, he goes, "We want it at 155. I came up to 170. This is literally quote for quote. Came up to 170, face the bigger man. You want this trilogy? It's on my terms. Come back down to 155 and we'll do it." And Nate's good. Nate's big at 155. He's huge. He fought Michael Johnson, destroyed him. No one's ever done that to Michael Johnson before. And so I'd love to see that. That's obviously another one. And then my last one is, this probably will never ever happen, but Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Cormier.
I was thinking you were going to say that.
Yeah.
And they're both old, man.
Yeah, and that's one reason why. But that's one reason why I won't. Because first off, DC's retired. Brock Lesnar's in the WWE, and Dana was talking to Brock, and when Dana Cormier beat to become the champ, he called out Brock Lesnar at that event. He was like, "Brock Lesnar, come in the ring," and then Brock Lesnar came up in there, and then they started pushing people around, and then he was like, "DC, you're next. I'm coming for you." The fight never happened. That fight would be amazing if that fight happened. I'd love to see it. Especially because that fight could also go both ways. Brock Lesnar is literally chiseled out of concrete. He is an enormous. He's enormous. I feel like if you put him back in time, and in the Vikings, he would be the most feared person out there. He's got a freaking sword tattooed on his chest. He is an insane dude, and he's done just about everything. He's been in the NFL. He's done UFC. He's done wrestling. But obviously he's most popular. He won the heavyweight championship at 4 fights in. 4 fights in the heavyweight.
Fights.
Yeah. And he destroyed Randy Couture. Frank Mir knocked him out. And then Mark Hunt, I don't remember who won that fight.
Well, Mark Hunt probably lost. And I don't remember Mark Hunt from the prime of his career. Mm-hmm. But every time I heard him, for me, whenever I hear him talk about, it's always, oh yeah, it's he's just another stepping point in their journey to contention or a championship. Really,
yeah.
He's been good, but he hasn't been able to get that last step. If you know what I mean.
So what are your 3
My 3
dream fights?
I really want to see Cejudo come back. Did him and Dillashaw fight twice?
No, because I think after the first fight, didn't Dillashaw get positive for PEDs, and then, but I remember we were watching and he's fighting now.
No, he pulled out.
Oh, he did? Was that recently?
Yeah, I saw it on SportsCenter or ESPN or something like that, and he was taken out because of an eye injury that he took from an accidental headbutt.
Well, I'd like seeing Cejudo fight again because I think he's also, what is that, flyweight, 125, 130.
125.
I think he's definitely, and also he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. It's fine. We can leave it in. And then, so the way Cejudo. Can we please leave this in? This is funny.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, we can leave it in.
So, Cejudo, yeah, I'd like to see him fight again, but who would you like to see him?
I want to see him go with Dillashaw again, but I want to see them at 135 because the weight cut for Dillashaw, it killed him.
Yeah.
It killed
dropping that low is like crazy amount. Because
he probably walks around at 150.
Yeah, and he's got to go down to 125. That is insane. That's another thing about that sport, how insane weight cutting has to be, especially when
you take him on short.
When Jorge took the fight against Usman for the first time on 6 days' notice, he had to lose like 20 pounds in 6 days, and he was just doing constant saunas and sweatsuits or steam showers and sweatsuits. That's brutal, dude. I don't think I could ever do that.
I bet you he doesn't remember the last 3 days going up to the fight.
Probably not.
It's
just so insane.
Dehydrated.
Yeah. What's number 2?
Number 2. Right now, I really want to see John Jones and Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, I actually have that written down. I want to see that too.
Oh
my God.
Give Derek Lewis a shot.
What, at Ngannou or at Jones?
Ngannou. He has been crawling his way up the heavyweight ladder for years now. He's one of my favorite fighters. He's my favorite heavyweight. And
he posts a lot of memes on Instagram.
Yes, his Instagram is hilarious. And for John Jones to just stroll into the heavyweight division and be like, "Sorry, Derek, I don't care if you're the number 2 or the number 1 contender. I'm here, and it's my time to fight Francis." Yeah.
I'd like to see that too.
Derek Lewis, he's probably gonna lose to Francis, and I'm okay with that.
That's just at least giving him a shot to do it.
Give him a shot.
And Ngannou is an insane human being. He is just. I mean, what's his the Nigerian nightmare? No, that's
Cameroonian. What's his nickname? It's like Predator or something like that.
Something cool, I bet.
It's something really cool.
But I'd love to see that. And then another. So then, what would be number 1?
Number 1. Probably McGregor Diaz 3. Yeah. That fight.
I mean, you can't. You gotta sneak that fight in somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And eventually, I would say that it could happen. But Nate, I don't know if Nate wants to do it though. Is the thing. Conor definitely would, but
Nate's
I don't know if
Nate's back in it now. What makes
yeah.
you say he wouldn't want
well,
to?
back when they were first negotiating the third fight, Nate didn't want to do it. But now
I think he wanted to go down to 155.
Yeah.
Again, he probably suffered.
Well, Conor's huge at 170. Honestly, if Conor probably walks around at 170, it's probably his fighting weight is 170. But Conor against Cowboy was that was a massacre. I mean, that fight was amazing. I loved it.
I wouldn't say it's a massacre because it wasn't like he just systematically tore apart every piece of Cerrone's game.
Yeah.
He just got a lucky hit him. And you know what? I'm not saying, Donald Cerrone should have won that fight. No, McGregor won it fair and square. But,
yeah.
I mean, when you break your nose, or was it his nose?
Yeah, he broke his nose off the shoulder shot.
From Conor McGregor's shoulder. Break that off the first hit you take in the fight. There's not much you can do about that. Yeah. That's just bad luck.
That fight I enjoyed watching that fight a lot.
And then the Poirier 2 fight.
Mm-hmm.
After the first round, before he came in with those leg kicks and just finished off Conor, Dustin was throwing shoulders at Conor.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with Dustin on there, and he was saying after the round, "Hey Conor, how'd you like that clavicle? Like, of all the things." And then Conor was like, "Okay, whatever." Next round, he goes and throws his shoulders, and Dustin's like, "Yeah, no."
Mm-hmm.
He has so much more pop on it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really make sense.
And another thing about Conor is that nice Conor McGregor is officially done.
Really?
No more nice Conor. He put it out on his Instagram. He said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." I mean, on Twitter, he called Dustin Poirier an inbred hillbilly because something about Poirier not wanting to take the fight because of he didn't want to donate to a charity or whatever, and he called him an inbred hillbilly. And then, but the fight's still going. I mean, they officially announced that, so the fight's still going to happen. 20,000 fans in Vegas to a sold out crowd, and
do you know what arena it's
in? It's in T-Mobile Arena, I think. But I think that would be the biggest reason why Conor wins, is because he had people because fighting without. And another thing that I loved about watching 261, finally seeing a packed crowd to watch one of the most hyped up fights.
I didn't mind the silence.
See, I did, because I mean that's just what sport. I mean, like
I don't care about
the thing about the UFC, it gives you like a gladiator type vibe. I mean, you put two guys in there who are going to go in there and basically try and kill each other for 25 minutes. You got to have people, thousands of people surrounding, just doing chants and cheering and booing. That's what I think is what the sport's
that's a big
about.
part of it, but it's also not. I mean, you got to think about it. This is an art form, and I liked it without the sound. I mean, I like it with both. I love the crowd. Don't get me wrong, but the sound, you could just understand what was going through the brain. You could hear the trainers talking to them. It felt a lot more personal. You learned more about what was happening with the fight, and it even came to some fighters, like helped out some fighters, because they were talking about the guy who played at Ole Miss and he went up to the UFC, Greg Hardy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Greg Hardy was fighting, and the announcers were saying he really needs to get those legs up, start checking some of those kicks, and he heard it.
Yeah.
And he ended up checking the kicks and winning the fight. So, just depending on how you look at it, it's both a blessing and a curse. Like Conor McGregor fights better with crowds.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. Dustin Poirier fights better without one.
Or maybe it's just the fact that Poirier can fight in both situations. He can fight with people and he can fight without. But with Conor, he's always the crowd favorite every single time. Doesn't matter if he could be fighting, somebody, like a Uriah Faber, and the crowd would still pull for him. So, and also, and I'm not saying that it's going to make him win, but it could give a short help just to boost his confidence up. And another guy that I've been liking to see, I liking to watch is Michael Chandler. He's new. I mean, he's like up and coming. He's getting his name out in the lightweight division. He's fighting. He's fighting Oscar Oliveira. Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah, he's
I know
fighting.
Michael Chandler is, but I don't know Oscar Oliveira.
And then now people are trying to get Michael Chandler to get into the octagon with Conor McGregor. So Conor is a money fight for anybody, and just like he said, it's red panty night when you sign to fight me, because it's also the fight with the most money, and you get more crowd attention and more publicity when you sign to fight him. And I'm not trying to be biased about him, but it's just the truth. It is. Another person that I miss is Tony Ferguson.
He fought last year.
Yeah, but it's a year is so long though.
In the fight game, not really though.
But and add to my dream fight is gotta be Khabib Ferguson.
Oh yeah.
Or Khabib GSP.
No, who cares about GSP? GSP was old by the time.
I love GSP though.
I love him. I love GSP, but he was old and retired by the time Khabib was in even title contention.
Yeah, but Khabib Ferguson is definitely a fight that, I mean, they've tried to do it 6 different times now. There's got to be something with that. I mean, they've tried to do it at least 5 or 6 different times, and there's always something with every single person. Yeah, I'm about to. I'll finish this thing with the Tony Ferguson. But with they scheduled and tried to make the fight happen 6 different times. I mean, press conferences, face-offs, 6 different times. Never happened. Never. There's got to be something with that, and it's Khabib always pulling out or Ferguson pulling out. And the 6th time they tried to make it happen, Khabib pulled out because of COVID. When I heard that he could have easily chartered a jet from Russia to Vegas, and he could have easily made the fight happen.
Would they have let him back into Russia?
Probably not. And Russia,
it's not so easy.
Yeah, but
Like,
I
you
mean,
guys
I understand. I understand how like
especially us being from the South, we don't see COVID as bad as it is.
yeah,
But the whole world is on shutdown.
especially a country as big as Russia. I mean,
And
like 6 million people, or in
watch what you say here.
I don't know how many people live in Russia.
Not so many. It's really big, but all the population is centered around Eastern Europe. Moscow and all that, and then some towns on the far west of Russia.
100. Okay, there's no way that's right.
What, 100 million people?
It says 146,000 people. That's not right.
In Russia?
Uh-huh.
There are 3 zeros?
It says 146,238. How many people? Okay. All right. That pretty much covers everything I had written down. Bennett, thank you.
Connor, thank you.
For people who don't know, this is my editor, business partner, and friend. So,
And friend.
yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes.
All right. We're going to call it. Thanks for listening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hooray! We did it!